Maybe some of the stories will have a little different spin because my perspective is different. I met Bob at Channel 3. I'm Jeff Maynor. I did the news at Channel 8 in the 70s, and then Channel 5 in the 80s, and then in the 90s and up until 2011, anchored weekend morning news at Channel 3. And that's where I met Bob. Bob would come to us as an engineer. Came into the newsroom, which is the size of an airplane hangar one day, and on weekends there's 3 or 4 people there, and it's kind of empty. Came over, introduced himself, said hi, and we got to know each other, and we became friends. And that's kind of rare, because I was thinking about that. I can't think of another engineer friend that I have for 47 years in broadcasting. And I think that's because engineers are like Bob was, a ham radio guy, and they're interested in how things work, and fixing them, and stuff like that. And anchors and other people in the news department tend to be performers who just want to get up and show off. And so it's maybe right brain, left brain, but I found out Bob was both sides of his brain, because he wasn't just an engineer, he'd been Mark Allen at Wixie. And when I heard that, because I had always wanted, when I got into broadcasting, I wanted to be a rock and roll disc jockey back in the 60s, and had no interest in being a news guy. And that's kind of where local broadcasting was back in the 60s. The Jerry G's, the Jay Lawrences, the Jack Armstrongs were the local celebrities, the kind of big deals with local broadcasting. And I happened to get in the news when news was taking off and growing, and I'm glad I did. But to know Bob, who had been Mark Allen at Wixie, was a big thrill, because I'd ask him, what was this guy like? And who decided what the jingles would say on the radio station? And all these things that I wanted to know, because I'd never had a chance to do that. And in fact, he told me the reason he was Mark Allen at Wixie was when he's hired there, whoever it was said, we have this Mark Allen jingle. And one of the original Wixie jocks, when they went on the air, was either it was Mark Allen or they gave him a station named Mark Allen, and he only stayed a month or so. So that jingle had sat on the shelf for years and years, and they said, we'd like you to be Mark Allen. So he said, okay. So he became Mark Allen because of another Mark Allen left. And when I would greet him at the station and other places where we be with each other, oftentimes I would greet him with the sound of that Mark Allen jingle. You know, if he'd call on the phone, oh, it's Mark Allen. And so that was a big part of our friendship. The Eulogy story, I love that because there's a moment in the movie American Graffiti which most people see one way. Richard Dreyfuss is going to the radio station to ask Wolfman Jack to play a dedication for Suzanne Summers, who he wants to meet. And he walks into this little radio station on the outskirts of town, and the glow of the lights from the board, the VU meters at the time, you can see it. And it's romance. It's in the movie, it's supposed to be about the guy who wants to meet the girl. But to me, it was about those times I was in a radio station, and I felt like I was walking in the hallowed ground. You know, this is a radio station. He sits there, and his voice flies through the air and goes into people's houses, and maybe into their heads and their hearts. And I think Bob had that same fascination for broadcasting, because the story that Ross told about going down to Eulogy, the way he told me is Bob was a kid in school, and he had a buddy who was down there. And the buddy said one day at school, you know, what'd you do on the weekend? Oh, went down to Channel 8, helped out in Eulogy. What? How could you do that? I just went out and helped him out. He needs gophers, you know. And so I did that. And Bob, when he would tell me the story, his eyes lit up like as a kid, my eyes lit up every time I thought of or was near a broadcasting place. And the blowing up the stuff and the hand of the shots. I don't remember, that was a big part of Ernie Anderson's thing, blowing things up. I remember watching once a little kid in Bucyrus had sent him a popsicle stick fort made of thousands of popsicle sticks. And Ernie saying, hey, good work, kid, way to go. You know? And all of a sudden, popsicle sticks all over the place. That would have been my friend Bob. He did love broadcasting, and he loved it so much that by the time I knew Bob and we met, he was doing something I'd never done. He was working at multiple places in broadcasting to, as I said, cobble together a living. And I'd never been tested whether I loved it that much. I was lucky that I always had a place to go to work and work my 40 hours a week and then go home and forget about it. But Bob would go from Streetsboro, the Sunday Oldies Jukebox, to Kenston, where he was teaching urchins the basics of broadcasting and how to run a community station from a school and how to do it in a professional way. And Wixie 1260 Online later on in life. He was a teacher. He wanted to pass on to people the professionalism of broadcasting as he understood it. And I know that because I've reached an age where I look back at those urchins and hope and pray that they bring to it a seriousness and a purposefulness that will give us the kind of broadcasting that we've had that I fell in love with and Bob fell in love with. He was also a consultant that would go out to radio stations and teach the young ones starting out at radio stations how to do it right. I went over to Erie, Pennsylvania last summer to see Cole Brothers Circus. Circus is an interest of mine. Bob and I shared railroads and radio, but I don't have amusement parks, but I don't think he was into circuses like I was. But I knew he had consulted a station in Pontiac, and as I was driving to Erie to see Cole Brothers Circus, I heard his voice. You know, maybe years ago, they were still using that great voice and that great delivery recorded as part of the image of their station. We got together at the IF Center. It's called Piston and something. I call it the Hot Rod Show. It used to be Autorama, where they had the custom cars and the hot rods. And Wixie 1260 Online was doing shows out there. And I went out with the inducement that I would get a chance to do a show with Bob. And so we did. For about an hour, we were on the air together, like I said, as a radio team. And I got to play DJ, which is what I used to do in my bedroom as a kid. Pretend I was on the radio, and only this time we were really online radio, internet radio, and had a great time with that. Well, about that time, Bob told me the Parma 4th of July parade was coming up, and he would like me to ride with him in the parade, 4th of July. He was proud of his black Camaro convertible, and he wanted to be in this parade. And I 20 or 30 years ago, I had enough parades. I was at the Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame parade, which I swear lasted over 3 hours. And after about a half hour of smiling and waving, you feel like a lunatic sitting there, waving to strangers and smiling. And smile, it turns into a grimace, and it doesn't go away for about a week. So if I never saw another parade or was never in another parade, I'd be happy. But Bob was a big deal to Bob, so it was a big deal to me. And so we met in Parma. I called Trudy to make sure his health was beginning to fail at that time, and to make sure they were going to do it. And they were. She said he's had a couple tough days, but he wants to do this, and he told me, "Don't try to talk me out of this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in this parade." So I drove over to Parliament, found him, and we unfortunately had to sit for about an hour and a half before the parade started to move out. We were tail it, but it moved well and quickly. Bob had outfitted that beautiful Camaro with a parade package, I guess they call it. It had a variety of sirens, including the European one that goes, and all different kinds of sirens, and different buttons you push to get different siren sounds. And strobe lights and the tail lights, I don't know about the front. So we're sitting in the car, and Judy said, "I don't think you should get up on the back, Bob's balance isn't the best." So we were just sitting in the car. And as we pulled out, I thought, well, I can sort of lean on the side of the car, and I can push these buttons for Bob to make the siren sounds. And there was a microphone. Like Ross said, give Bob here a microphone, and he'll be right there. Me too. So I picked up the microphone, and I would say, "Hey, welcome, happy 4th of July, Wixie 1260 Online, I'm Jeff Maynor. It's my friend Mark Allen from Wixie 1260, one of the original Supermen," and people would applaud, and he would wave and smile. And so we had a great time at a parade that, were it not for Bob, I would have been unhappy to be there. So it was a beautiful day. Bob was very blessed. I got to, toward the end of his life, be around at times where I saw the wonderful loving care he got from the love of his wife, Trudy. And I admired that and loved her for the way she cared for my friend. She was round the clock, full-time nurse, and Bob needed a lot of care and a lot of help. And I always loved Trudy for the way she took care of my friend. Glad I got a chance to see that. Several years back, I must have been coming up on retirement or something, I said to my wife, Patsy, you know, I think, I must have been contemplating my own mortality. So I think if after I die, if somebody says he was a good man, that's all I need. You know, nobody would say he was the best news guy or he was this or that. If somebody says he was a good man, that's it. So